Hi, my name is Tashi, and you're watching Beauty and the Bar. So continuing on with the How to Get into Law School series, I'm just going to quickly discuss some online resources that I found helpful in my law school admissions process and that you might find helpful as well. So let's get into it. The first website that I want to talk about is US News and World Report. This is kind of the gold standard in ranking law schools, and it's something that you want to look to kind of see where a law school hashes out. Keep in mind that the US News and World Report system doesn't weight job outcomes as heavily as it could, and does put a heavy emphasis on certain other factors like admissions rates, average GPAs, and LSAT scores of the law schools. And that's not really something that students are going to be super interested in. You know, as an individual student, you're probably going to be a lot more concerned with job outcomes, but that can kind of show you where law schools stack up, especially in the minds of the general legal field, of other people who are operating in the legal field. On that note though, the ABA, American Bar Association, does have employment data for each law school, so you can go in and look at each individual law school and see what percentage of their graduates are getting jobs, and you know how many years out, and whether those are jobs that require a JD, basically require the degree that you're getting. And so that will help you to gauge what your outcomes might look like coming out of a school. That's definitely a resource that I would highly recommend you checking out. Another resource that I think is really helpful is LSAT QA. I think they might have rebranded to something like LSAT Max, but it's a free website where you can see sample LSAT questions, take quizzes, and basically help yourself prepare for the LSAT. You know, as many questions as you can get your hands on is as many questions as you should take. As many practice tests as you can get your hands on is as many practice tests as you should take. And so that can be a really helpful resource. Another helpful resource is Law School Numbers. I don't want you to get too carried away with Law School Numbers, but essentially it is a site that collects user data. People go in and they put in their LSAT and GPA and the schools that they're getting admitted to, and that can really help you to gauge whether you would be competitive at a particular school. Sometimes only having an average is not telling the full story and giving you the full picture, so it can be really helpful and heartening to, you know, look at and see specific examples of people who might have an LSAT score that's well below the average of a school, but have gotten in with their high GPA or other attributes. So it's really nice to see kind of the range that people are accepting. The average really does not tell the whole story, and you should not count yourself out if you are below the averages for a particular school, especially if you are a candidate that has other attributes and other things that you bring, or you come from a more difficult background, you have a more difficult major. All of those different factors can play a role. So take it with a grain of salt, but Law School Numbers can be really helpful, and in some ways can be very heartening. The LSAC website, LSAC, has a lot of diversity resources and scholarship information. So that can be very helpful, especially if you're concerned about paying for law school or paying for applications. It can give you additional information about application fee waivers and about scholarships, and you know, additional resources that are going to be really helpful to you. So I definitely recommend checking those out, especially if you are a diverse candidate. Another great resource is schools' admissions blogs. Law schools do put out information about how to get into their own law school, the things that they're looking for, things that are going on at the school. So if your law school, if a law school that you are interested in has a blog, I recommend checking it out and getting it, you know, basically from the horse's mouth. I would take what they say with a grain of salt, because they can't always be you know, as straightforward or blunt as would be helpful, but definitely, you know, check out those resources and take what they say into account, especially if it's a school that you're very interested in. The final resource that I wanted to mention is toplawschools.com. They have a lot of information about, you know, quote unquote top law schools, and forums where people discuss the absolute nitty-gritty of you know, LSAT test taking, of law school admissions, of different scholarships. Absolutely be so incredibly super careful on that website, because it is definitely a hodgepodge and melting pot of anxiety. There are a lot of people on there who are honestly have worked themselves up into a frenzy. There's a lot of people on there who will be posting that are quite elitist, that can be sort of rude. So you have to take the good with the bad. There's a lot of awesome information on that website, especially for people who are coming into this process without, you know, the kind of background, who are first generation, etc. But like I said, just take what you see with a grain of salt, and do not allow yourself to get like worked up and froth it up into the frenzy that is very possible looking at those forums. But I will say, especially as a candidate who's first generation and a candidate of color, I got a lot of great information from top law schools. So I would highly recommend taking a peek, but don't spend too much time in there, because it can warp your brain. That's about all of the resources that I you know, would recommend and that were helpful to me as I was going through my process. Obviously, there are more in-person resources and human resources that can be helpful to you, but those are all of the online resources. There is one program that I want to mention and plug before I'm done. That program is called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity. Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, or SEO, is a nonprofit program that places students in particular internships in jobs of different fields. They have a legal program that places students in jobs with top law firms the summer before you start law school. So you apply sort of at the same time that you're applying for law school, and if you are, it is a diversity program. It's for candidates who are generally people of color, but it takes into account other types of diversity as well, I believe. And basically you spend a summer in a major city working at a top law firm, essentially getting an experience similar to that of a summer associate, and you are paid a pretty solid rate. You're not paid as much as a summer associate, but you are pretty well compensated. And they also provide you with tons of contacts, connections, resources. They put on more events than you could ever possibly imagine. Basically getting people to mingle, getting you introduced to professionals in the legal community of that city. And they also do tons of trainings on how to conduct yourself as a professional. It's super helpful if you're first generation. They will teach you everything from how to dress for an interview, what to say, how to take law school exams, everything. So it is a super, super helpful program if you can get admitted to it, and I would definitely check it out. For those of you that are watching this and aren't sure you want to go to law school and might be interested in another path, they also have programs in various business subjects that place people in like investment banking, for instance, or finance jobs, internships rather, that can turn into jobs. And they have a nonprofit program as well. I did their legal program, but the summer before I also did their nonprofit program, and I worked in Teach for America's corporate office in New York City, and it was a really great experience. So I would highly recommend checking that out if you are a diverse candidate and that's something that sounds like it would be interesting to you. That's about all I have for today. If you found this helpful, please go ahead and like this video. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. Leave a comment down below with any resources that you find helpful. I want to, make sure that we're creating a community, and if there are additional things that have come out since my time applying for law school these many years ago, I'd love to know about them. And that's gonna just about do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.